what is happening in Turkey is no less remarkable. If Indonesia has the prestige of being the largest Muslim country, Turkey is remembered among Muslims as the seat of their last empire as well as caliphate. Now, the criticism of Abdurrahman al-Kawakibi of the Ottoman Empire's despotic rule, Rifa'at Tahtawi's admiration of French democratic institutions, recently translated under the title An Imam in Paris. The Caliphate movement, those who were struggling on behalf of the Caliphate, were those countries that had strong influence, Turkish influence initially. In our part of the world, we were not too supportive of the Caliphate movement because we saw the Caliphate movement with all the excesses and ruthlessness and repression. Now, where in the Muslim world you have full democracy? Well, in Turkey, more promising, because they have the EU, and with the clear ground rules that would help the Turkish leadership to navigate its way and mature in the process. However, it is Turkey's fundamental contradiction that until recently its secular character was maintained not by popular consent but by military force. But the current government, with a clear democratic mandate, Turkey is undoubtedly one of the most vibrant and mature Muslim democracy. It is within this democratic mode that the nation wants to refresh its collective memory of its cultural identity, to mature as a democracy but retain its Muslim identity. This is, to my mind, very critical. It has helped the ruling party and the liberal elements in Turkey to navigate through these pressures of EU, which is not confined to Turkey, but there are standard agreements that apply to all EU members, those that have applied or wish to be members of EU. And to my mind, this is of enormous assistance in the maturing process and towards reform in Turkey. Secondly, you must also realize that the military establishment is a major factor and still have an immense influence and pressure against democratic leadership in Turkey. And it is only through the EU pressure, and I believe to a large extent American pressure, that you can then manage to confine the military establishment in their barracks. And it's interesting that the secularism as understood by Mustafa Kemal is far more excessive than secularism in the United States. You know, that is secularism which is anti-religion. Now, secularism should not be understood as to be anti-religion. It should be at least a separation of church and state. It's not against religion. I mean, once you take a position like the Kemalists of Turkey, I mean, it's generally perceived as being anti-religious, and therefore you will have a backlash. That is why so much of propaganda, control, was finally rejected